Hi, ClexaCon.
Thank you.
There you go. I'm Kristen Baker. I'm going to be a panelist and moderator, dual role today, which is going to be super fun. We have some pretty amazing people up here on the panel today who have a body of work that is fantastic and amazing at queer representation. And so this is going to be very interactive since Kat Burrell is across the way.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming in and joining us to talk about the lesbian sex scene and how you direct one. But it's going to be really informal. So if you have questions, raise your hand. We'll probably be able to get to those. We're not going to do a formal Q&A at the end, but we're really just going to talk about it from a director's perspective and how important it is. And then I just grabbed Mandahla, who is actually on the panel in Vegas, so that's how I know that she can speak to this. So we have an actor's perspective as well, so we'll go through. But and we'll actually start with Mandahla. Why don't we just all introduce ourselves, what projects we've done, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Hi, I'm Mandahla Rose, most well known for All About E, directed and written by Louise, and also just actually premiering on the 7th of November, I believe, Alice and Isa.
Is it the 7th? Yeah, that's right.
Correct.
We're having a cast and crew screening. So, yes.
Sorry?
Other things?
I mean, I've been in other things as well, yes, but they are All About E is the one that I'm most well known for at the moment.
Hi, I'm Louise Wadley. I'm the writer and director of All About E. I'm so excited to be on a panel with you. Because I wrote and directed that, and my partner Jay was the producer, so very much a team in the way that you two are. Very excited to be here. First ClexaCon. Happy that you've come across from the way of the screaming hordes in room number 1. And hoping to do lots more content that you'll be interested in.
Great. I'm Shamim Sarif, and I've written and directed 3 movies. I Can't Think Straight, which seems to be everybody's favourite. The World Unseen and Despite the Falling Snow. And 2 more projects coming up. Polarized, which is a love story between 2 women in contemporary America, which we're hoping to shoot next summer in Canada, and the Athena Protocol, which is based on my upcoming novel, also with the lesbian lead protagonist. Yay.
Just love all the lesbian leads.
And if you haven't seen A World Unseen, you need to see it. It's a really important movie.
Thank you.
It's on tellofilms.com, should you want to see it at any point in time. I'm Kristen Baker. I'm the president and CEO of tellofilms.com. We're a subscription video on demand platform that distributes and creates content for queer LGBTQ women, queer women, lesbians, lady-loving ladies, and anyone else who loves lady-loving ladies. And we also, as I mentioned, create our own content. So I've been fortunate enough to direct and produce about half the projects that are on Tello. So we did a project called Riley Para, Nikki and Nora, Maybell. So you can go to Tello and see a lot of stuff. But why don't we talk first about, so everyone's up here because they've either directed or been in an intimate scene. It might not have been a full-blown sex scene, or who knows what you saw, but it was an intimate moment between 2 women. So I want to start with you, Shamim, and talk about what is like the overarching. Do you have an overarching philosophy around those kind of intimate moments between women?
2 things. I think on the creative level, it's about. I think I approach the scenes the way I approach every scene, which is to figure out what is the core emotional turning point of that scene. As with anything, and then to think about how you want to stage it, how the shots are going to go from that, so that you're not missing out on that central narrative moment or emotional moment. So I think that's important, is not to over-dramatize it, but at the same time, on a more practical level, I think I always approach it from the perspective of trying to make the actors feel as comfortable as possible, as safe as possible, in an environment where they are not going to feel, because it's, I think acting is already quite an exposing thing to do, physically, mentally, emotionally, and to do that without your clothes on and in an intimate scene with somebody you're not particularly intimate with, probably, needs a bit more of a nurturing environment, if you like. So I tried to achieve that. There's been a movie where that has been a nightmare to do. Two movies actually, but so there've been the challenges around that have been really interesting along the way.
What can you talk a little bit more about the
Sure.
nightmare and why you before we'll keep going, but I just want to kind of mention it.
So well, with I Can't Think Straight, because everybody knows that one, we have two love scenes, and the feeling of those two is very different. One is a little bit more tentative when they shouldn't be together, they're coming together, and the one at the end is kind of a bit more of a joyous. We've come out, we're it's, and the feeling when we were shooting them was also very different. And I think in the first one, we had a so-called investor who was a nightmare, who wanted, I want nipples, he said on the morning of the love scene, and I need this and I need that. And it became like a very stressful situation where we felt that we really had to protect the actors and try to have the vision that we wanted. But it was just the stress around that was difficult to manage. But by the end, I think Hanan had sort of completely pushed this guy off set and kept.
She's the muscle.
She's the muscle, and so when we shot the second love scene, we didn't even have them behind monitors, out of the room, none of that stuff. They were just banned, which wasn't easy to do, but it made it a lot freer for us, for the actors. So it was a much easier.
Got it. So and the investor, which I assume was a male investor, kind of came on and started making demands, which caused it to be stressful.
At the last minute.
Got
exactly.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Louise, talk about what is your sort of overarching philosophy around approaching as a director and a producer.
Well,
an
I
intimate scene?
think first of all, it was very important to me when we were making All About E, that we were going to show a sex scene that at least approximated what it was really like when two women who are desperately in love come together. And there weren't many movies that I could say hand on heart that when I was watching that movie that I felt the same. In other words, there's a lot of films that have sex scenes between two women which are probably more like a sort of fantasy of perhaps maybe like your investor who have a fantasy. And I think that's still really common today, that even with a lot of content on big screens, little screens, that the scenes between two women having sex and meaningful sex, because it's fine to have, there's in our movie there's hot sex that's just like a one-night stand, but the main sex scene was between two people who were, felt like they were sort of the life partner. And I wanted to be able to convey that experience of what it felt like to be deeply in love and to have that extraordinary intimacy that I think lesbian sex has, which is what most people don't get when they see, I think films made about lesbians, in a very ill-informed way. So it was really important to me to show that. And I also wanted to show, because often sex on screen is not about intimacy. So for me, it was really important to do a scene where it was not just about sex, which you can do lots of different ways, but it was about sex with intimacy, which I think is the most powerful kind of experience any of us can have. And there's just very little of that out there, of powerful sex scenes that are about a really deep exchange of feeling, as well as, having a fantastic time. So that was what we were trying to achieve with All About E. And so to me, that was really important to have the rehearsal time to discuss with our two main lead actresses a lot about what they felt, a lot about what was going to be comfortable in the room. Ask me later how it actually went, because filmmaking is all about solving problems, right?
Yes.
So you have all these ideas, and we had lots of wonderful rehearsals, and we had a lot of input from different people. Our main character played by, he was a gay character in the film, but he was also a lovely gay man who was a fantastic friend, and he helped in just the choreography in terms of having another eye. It was great. I asked him to come in because both actresses felt comfortable with him to actually just have another set of eyes, and I trusted him that much to just say, could you look at it with a different set of eyes, because it's a lot like a dance, and we wanted people to have this comfort knowing, oh, well, this is going to happen and this is going to happen then, because I wanted people to feel that incredible connection. So to me, it was about creating a safe environment, but actually, and so it's a long scene. I also wanted to not shy away. I could have gone, the door opened, they went in, the door closed, and they woke up the next morning. We've all seen that, right?
In a bra and underwear, because that's how we...
Yeah, in a bra and underwear, yeah. This was about, lesbian sex and not taking away from all the intimacy and all the extraordinary passion. So we were asking a lot. We were saying, we want to show, a really tender sex scene that takes us all the way there. For most people, when, especially women, if they've fallen in love with another woman, it's an extraordinary experience. And we wanted to show that. So, we had some challenges, and I'm really proud of what we did, and I'm really proud of, the things we achieved with it, because a lot of people have written to us about it.
Mandahla, as an actor coming to knowing when you read a script, that is going to be asked of you and your character, how do you approach it as an actor?
How I approach it is, does it make sense to actually have a sex scene in that story? And if it actually makes sense to the story for that to happen, because, sometimes you watch films and it's like, well, I don't understand why there's a sex scene in here. I don't understand why she's taken her top off. It doesn't make any sense or whatever. I approach it as, does it make sense to the story? Should it be part of the story? And thank you, I always have this problem. And I go about it that way. So I don't, as an actor, my job is to portray a person's story. So if it is that the sex scene is there and it is important to tell, then of course I'm going to take my pants off.
Yes. Yeah. So let's actually go one step sort of pre-sex scene that I think I want to ask first, or not first, very quickly, and I'm thinking of the World Unseen specifically, Shamim, is talk about, before we get to that part, you usually have this like really lovely kiss. What's the thought process around that? How do you direct the actors? What do you, especially if it's an actor who's either never kissed a woman or might feel uncomfortable, and I feel like the World Unseen has just that kiss that's just
it's
that
all about the kiss.
Iconic kiss. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really beautiful scene for me to shoot, and I think we were having a happier time on that set generally, and it was also the second time that I'd worked with Lisa and Sheetal, so we all kind of had a shorthand, and we were all very trusting and relaxed with each other. But they're really great actors, and I think I don't remember that a time this conversation about it being between two women ever came up, even on I Can't Think Straight.
Okay.
For them, they bonded with the script purely on the level of it being a love story that made sense to them. And I think the same with the World Unseen. And I think that scene in the car where Amina was giving her the driving lesson, it was that beautiful thing that you want to happen in every scene that you direct, where you've planned it, you've gone over the script, you've done the little rehearsal, but there was no kissing in the rehearsal, and then you shoot, and they, you give them a little direction, but they hit a groove that just happened, and there's a moment I think where the hands touch, all of that, which we hadn't gone through, we hadn't blocked it to that degree, but then it was like, the guy with the camera, come on, dip down, let's get that. But it was, and then you shout cut, and everybody felt it. And it was like, wow, there was a moment where they knew they had it.
It's like this exhale, like, oh god, that was amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's exactly. It was just. It felt like it felt in the final film on the set, and that's, I think, is a beautiful moment when that happens. But I think it comes from trust. I think it comes from being prepared, and then being able to let go. So it was lovely. I said, cut and then do it again.
Yes,
just
again,
like that, but better.
Again, yeah.
No.
Louise, talk about when you've directed a kiss.
Look, to me, it's a tricky one, because if you're kissing someone in real life, hopefully you're not kind of blocking the scene and checking it all out and how everyone looks. And obviously,
Move your hair. Move the hair back from the camera. Have you seen that one? That's my favorite, right? Like if you ever watch something and you see the actor, I'm sorry, Shamim, go like if the camera's do this really weird. I'm pushing your hair back so the camera can see your face. You see it every time, and it's someone going, "Oh, I need to do this for you," so we can see your face.
And so I think
we don't do that in real life. Oddly enough,
we don't. But I think it also means that when you're watching, kissing scenes, you subconsciously might think, "Oh, I don't believe that kiss," and that might be because something like that happens so reflexively. An actor or a director is asking them, "Oh, make sure your hair's out of the way." But these are all technical things that you do have to be aware of. And the other thing is you've got to be aware of where the camera is, because you'll all know from taking selfies, if you take a selfie up your nose, you don't look as good as if you take a selfie from above your head.
That's true.
So you've got to be really careful when you're also filming something, to have a cinematic understanding of what are the technical requirements so that my actors don't look silly. Not because they're being silly, they might be acting their socks off and the room vibe is really amazing, but if I'm not on my game, it might look silly instead of touching. So it's actually really more about trying to make people feel safe, feel that they can just connect with each other and get on with the job of not bogging them down with, "Oh, we're going to have to be careful where the camera is," or whatever, because there are many technical things you have to be on top of to make sure that that beautiful feeling that you're trying to get is actually coming across to you, the viewer. And I think if the viewer is aware in any way of that, there's a kind of, it's very subtle. You might not realise, you might not think, "Oh, I didn't like the way they kissed." I mean, you might think that. But you might just think, "I'm not quite sure why I don't believe it." And that's, as a director, what you're really worried about all the time. You're looking for an authenticity to come through, because what you're trying to get is this beautiful connection. And kisses are great. Kisses are an extraordinary thing to happen. So you're trying to get that through the lens. And so for me, it's about creating the right space, but also, and I'm sure you're on with this, is you've got a number of shots you've got to cut with, you've got to cut. So, you need to shoot quite a lot to be able to do a very short, even a 10 or 30-second scene might need quite a lot of shots, just to be sure that when you were watching it, you didn't notice that someone kept closing their eyes at the wrong point, or winking, not realising that they look like they're winking. They might not be winking, but the camera makes it look like they're winking. So you just have to be really onto all that stuff, I'm sure you.
No, absolutely. And with that scene in The World Unseen, it was, we did a very clear master shot, which was through the windscreen, which was scratchy and old or whatever, but it worked for the feel that we wanted. And I knew, okay, fine, whatever happens sideways, however their heads tend to move once we're in each window for the close-up on each actress, this master shot would get the kiss. But in the end, actually what happened, and really the direction for that scene was less about the kiss and more about what happens, that build-up. So really, I think there's such a long build-up. I don't think
there
you
is.
actually see.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful resolution.
Sorry, I just rewatched it the other day, and that's why I was like,
I haven't seen it so long, but I don't think you actually see that much of the lips actually touching. I think it's all in the feeling
It's a lot
of
of
them being
forehead.
very close
Isn't
together.
that funny how the lesbians, we love the forehead touch right before the kiss, right? We're just going to sit there. Just going to sit
a
there.
lot of that.
And then we're just going to look at each other, and then maybe we're going to kiss.
But it's
a lot
that
of forehead
tension.
touching.
It's
yeah.
that tension.
Oh no, it's
And-
beautiful. I've done it. I've had my actresses do it. Yeah.
So that was really the direction, is just to feel, because to take that leap, especially in that particular, for those characters, was a huge,
Yeah, it was huge, yeah.
leap. It was like having a massive sex scene between people.
Yes, it
right
was.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the sex scene in a way. But in fact, the intimacy that we got inside the car from each side, even though it didn't show as much, worked better than I thought it would. I thought we were going to play most of it on this front shot and just have a little bit cutting here and there, but it really worked beautifully.
Yeah. Mandahla, as someone who has been kissing lots of people, talk about the as an act, coming from an actor's perspective, the rehearsal process, and then the difference in rehearsing, because I don't know that there are a lot of actors in the room, but that rehearsal process and how it's different and how it prepares you for when the director says action and it's kiss time.
One thing that's super important is chemistry. So if there's chemistry between you two lead actors, then it's going to be, I mean, it's much more comfortable for myself if there's chemistry with my co-star. And just the fun, as someone who is quite shy, as you remember, it takes me a little bit to kind of get to that point where, yeah, okay, we're ready to kiss now. Cool. Because I mean, it's a while ago that we did that Julia and I did that scene, but I remember I would get so shy, and you're like, okay, so now this is when we're going to kiss, so you're going to do that. And, you know, just recently Biffle is a series that just shot, and there are two actors, the lead actors in that as well. They have this kiss, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm like, that is so not believable. Like their lips just press against each other, and
they smush the lips.
They just smush their lips together.
That doesn't work if anyone's directing or acting. Just smushing your lips, no,
it's not. I mean, we don't do that if it's an actual. I mean, and this one was a drunken kiss, but still, if you're drunk, your inhibitions are gone, so they're going to go for it, right? And they didn't, and the director didn't say anything, and I'm like, okay, cool. So the kids are going to need some open mouth for this, and as an actor and knowing, you know, and also queer myself, obviously. I mean, I'm the straightest you've ever seen. You go into the scene knowing that you have to make it real and actually have an open mouth kiss, and my shyness I have to put it away, and I have to actually be that character and do that. So it's when you have a director that you really trust as well, that's going to come naturally. So I think that answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think talk a little bit more about the rehearsal. Like you rehearse this, and I think I can't remember who said it, but you don't always kiss in the actual rehearsal.
Correct.
You sort of get close, and then
your cheeks touch.
But then when the camera's rolling,
you have to go for it. Shannon and I had to go for it in Passage, and it's like, whoa, there was no...
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I directed Mandahla in a kiss, and I totally forgot.
And that point when my hand goes, and you're like, no, I don't like that.
I did.
Don't put your hand there.
That's right, I did.
But when we did, Shannon and I hadn't even there is a moment maybe where I would talk to my other co-star and be like, okay, so this is a kiss. We know what we both need to actually bring to the table, so to speak. And it's kind of like you ask permission, you ask for consent, in a way. The rehearsal times, I remember, Shannon and I, we would be close, hi, Louise. It would be so this is what the camera sees, so you need to obviously rehearse the camera, and we would be close, and it's like, okay, so that's what it's going to be. And then when it's actually action, you go in, and it's kind of like you are the character, you are that, and the rehearsal is just like getting in each other's intimate space and feeling what that is like, and then as soon as the camera rolls, you just got to go for it. So it is definitely, the rehearsal part is the lead up to it, and you get closer and you get closer and you get closer, your cheeks touch, and cool, we feel comfortable, and the camera's rolling, and you go for it.
Yeah.
I think maybe the ideal thing is the rehearsal, and I haven't done this ideally by any means in it all the time, but the rehearsal period is about the blocking, the technicalities of it.
Where's the camera going to be?
Exactly. And we know that first we're going to touch here, and then we're going to do this, and then we'll go in here, blah. But you don't want to be, you do that because you don't want to be thinking about it when you shout action, and then you are in character. So it is natural for those characters to be kissing because that's where they are in the story, even though you're often shooting completely out of sequence. So it's not always where they are in the story. But, that's the actor's job, is to imagine that is where you are. Yeah.
And it is a dance. We choreograph. It is actually a choreography. So we touch here, and then at this point we're going to go here, and you count the beats, and you know what the beats are, and you have to remember that when it is action, that you do that every single time. It ends up being a choreography or a dance, and the idea or the shyness ends up going out the window anyway, because it's just it is. And I think
I just want to say, problems come up on set all the time. You have the best laid plans, and you've got all these rehearsals we rehearsed, and I felt very confident about the connection between our main characters, E and Trish, and this extraordinary kind of pent-up desire. But, on the day, it was the most extraordinary heat wave. Now, Mandahla, also, we knew we were going to have clothes off, but the character that Mandahla played would not have the back tattoo that Mandahla has. So we had to put that on for an hour at least before. And we suddenly had this extraordinary heat wave where we're in this. So can you imagine, there's body paint over this back tattoo.
My back was melting.
So, if someone is putting their hands on someone's back, it's like, oh my God. But that's not how it looks at all. But it means you always have to be nimble. You have all these intentions, but you have to be prepared. And also, we had a female cinematographer, which I think did help. We had a great crew and set, and it's creating that environment where actors feel safe. I mean, I think it's weird. Actors have to kiss people they don't like, whether they're men or women or whatever. You're suddenly having to be intimate. But I definitely think I had watched a lot of interaction on films and TV and not believed it, so I really wanted to make sure that people believed it. And I think there is something you have to be very protective of, because I think lesbians have been cheated in being able to see the range of kind of love on screen, because there's just not enough. It's just, we need to make good movies, bad movies, rubbish movies, mediocre movies, and there's just not enough. So everything is really important. And that was really challenging to have, a small room. We actually had a location, which was a fabulous location, and about 10 days before we were all going to shoot, they suddenly said to us, actually, we don't want you to shoot there anymore. And Jay, the producer, my partner, she was having to try and find out why. And what she worked out was eventually that they hadn't quite read the whole script when they said, oh, yeah, that's fine, you can have our farm. And suddenly she had to work out, was it because they were filming a sex scene in their bedroom? And it was. And she was like, they're not really having sex, they're acting having sex. And they were like, no, we just couldn't possibly go. I could never stop thinking about that scene if you film it in my bedroom, this woman said.
I would say that in a good way, though. I'd be like, I will never stop thinking about that scene in my bedroom.
Should you
Please shoot that there.
Yeah. Should you be so lucky? So we also
That's right.
You can't stop thinking. I mean, it was an interesting thing from her, why she was feeling that way. But anyway, that's a different story. But it meant we had to...
She's going to have a girlfriend soon. Go ahead, sorry.
We had to create that bedroom of a period sort of location completely somewhere else. And again, technically there's a lot of things you have to be on top of. So what I would say is that, you can prepare, and then your main investable's out, or your people go nuts, or whatever happens, or the caterers walk off. You just have to be ready, to go and make the best you can. But I feel very proud of what we did, because there was an extraordinary feeling in the room, and even the crew and everything. We had a very reduced crew. People felt very moved. And that's really...
I mean, it's a 2.5 sex scene. Of course they felt moved.
All right, I'm going to pause right here and just see if there are any questions from you lovely people in the audience around it. Yes?
I actually have a question. I'm just thinking about a reduced set and the idea of a closed set. So I've worked on a TV show which was full of sex scenes. It was terrifying. And we had a closed set, but it was mainly a lot of dudes, grips, lighting. The sex scenes were incredibly disturbing. And now there's this idea of an intimacy.
Yeah, I've heard about that, yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Just out of interest, do you think that having a bigger budget means that everyone's okay with having an intimacy coordinator? Or do you think that a smaller budget makes it easier to do sex scenes?
First of all, I want to know how I can get that job. But what do you think about that? If anyone needs one, let me know. I'm here for you.
I don't know if it's budget related. I think our biggest budget film was Despite the Falling Snow. Am I allowed to tell the story? Okay. So first... Okay. So first off, the first act. So Rebecca Ferguson was playing there's a secondary story about a a queer woman who's researching her aunt Ketchup. I won't spare you the details. Anyway, she has this falls into this relationship with a Russian journalist. The first actress who we had to play that Russian journalist is a very big TV actress in Germany, and she came with 10% of our budget. And 10 days before we were due to start shooting, she pulled out because of the love scenes. She wanted to know that she could have this, that, the other. She wanted to come behind the camera and tell me if I could use a take or not, which is a whole different thing. So,
actors cannot do that, by the way.
no, because once you do that, you've lost control of
Absolutely.
everything. And I'm, and we had a long, good relationship. It wasn't like she thought I was some kind of a dodgy weirdo. Yeah, exactly, quite. And she said, okay, I want the same clause as Rebecca. And I said, well, she doesn't have any nudity rider or anything. She's Swedish. Sorry. So it's like practically mandatory.
She's like, and I have to take my shirt off.
I tell her that. It's a joke. So anyway, that happened. So we had to recast really, really quickly. Wow. Rebecca or Charles danced. Everybody was already on set. We were rehearsing. So we recast and with Antje Trau, and very lovely German actress. But that was she was really shy. She was stressed about this scene. Mm-hmm. And in the end, we actually ended up cutting the scene out of the movie. Even it was the most explicit scene that I had shot, but it wasn't needed in the way the movie turned out. So. I didn't want to have it in gratuitously, but the process of shooting it was such a nightmare. What happened was that we did a fair amount of rehearsal with Rebecca and Antje, and Rebecca was very relaxed about that. She had done The White Queen, which has a ton of sex scenes in it, and she was just we'll do a lot of the blocking, getting everything organized. We were all feeling reasonably good about that. And she said, I would feel better if we have storyboards, whatever. So my storyboards are kind of like, stick figures. So that doesn't work for me. But we got a storyboard artist. And I described this. We were in Serbia, very macho culture. It didn't help anything. Everybody on set was male except for wardrobe and makeup. And I described the shots, sat with the guy for like hours and hours and hours, and he came back with the exact right shots and the framing, but these women had pneumatic boobs.
Yeah, I was going to say
they were like, the lips were out here. It was like a total porno flick
for the storyboard,
in a cartoon thing. Yeah. So he's like, now you give this to your actress. I'm like, I'm thinking not.
No.
I'm thinking not, because this was her big fear. And I'm like, okay, here, this is what I want. So, and on top of that, our DP was an utter nightmare. I mean, of course, interviewed well, had this amazing CV, came to us and was just hitting on every woman on set all the way through. By the time it came to the love scene, he was like, great, literally like this. In front of the actors, I can't wait for them to get back. I said to Hanan, because Hanan is the muscle, I don't want him in the room.
I know, yeah.
He went ballistic. How can you not have me in the room? I mean, the actors did not
want him.
Because
you're gross. Yeah.
Because you're gross. So it was just that kind of having to best laid plans, and then you're actually dealing with this, but you're there, you're in the middle of it. It's Serbia. Everybody is super, super macho around. Having said that, the camera operators were lovely guys. So, but you try to control what you can, but some things are just out of your control.
Yeah.
I think
it's small set and intimacy
I wanted
coordinator,
to go,
right?
Yeah, I never even answered your question.
The first AD, was the first AD like a man or a woman?
Matt, everybody was a man, but I think an intimacy coordinator is not a bad thing. My concern with that is like with the dialect coach. I think they have to be mindful of the role of the director, and I think sometimes the director is the problem, having heard stories from many of the actresses I've worked with. So that might be a good thing there, but I wouldn't want them to come in and try to direct the emotion of it or whatever.
Look, I think it's a really good question because we're at a very special time. Sadly, we are at a special time, i.e. Me Too is a big thing, and lots of stories that probably are gossip, or everyone sort of, I know he's really handsy, watch out for him. Whatever it is, those things are now not so under the carpet. I think it's a really weird thing, isn't it, that we're even having a discussion that an intimacy coordinator would somehow make people behave like just human beings. Like, any actor is having to expose themselves and be vulnerable in an intimate scene. So how fucking weird is that we have to legislate and coordinate? But having said that, because it's often so macho, it may be that that's a way of progressing. What I would say is that, I think women need to learn to sack people more. I found one of the most helpful things I ever saw was the guy who directed Precious, Lee Daniels, saying, you know what, when we went to New York, nobody wanted to do this story about this big fat black girl because they just said no one's going to watch your movie. And he was like, get fucked. But he went there and he had to sack his first AD actually, and he had to say to a lot of people, you know what, your attitude is so belittling and appalling to all of my cast and crew, I'm not shooting anymore. And he closed the whole thing down. Now, that takes a lot, and I'm not sure I could do that. And you're so desperate often, you've got 100 problems to solve. But what I would say in our situation, I knew I wanted a female cinematographer because I'd done cinematography. When I went to film school, it was all men who'd gone through cinematography. And I'd wanted to be a cinematographer, and I was told, the guy is so misogynist, who's the guy at the film school, they haven't taken anyone in 9 years, so apply on another basis. So I think who's holding the camera is super important, because if you're an actress and you've got someone hovering over you, because you think about sex scenes, the camera is often up here. That's a very intimidating thing. So it can feel a bit like real life, someone hovering over you. So I think closed sets are important, but I think if you can't control that, like what you were talking about, you have to work out strategies to protect people, because if your actors don't feel safe, the camera doesn't lie. I mean, the camera is just, I love film, but it's one of the hardest things to work in because the camera doesn't lie. So if the actors have got a slight panic behind their eyes because some lech is on the camera or in the room even, we were very lucky. We had a male first AD, but he was incredibly respectful.
He kept stepping behind into the corridor whenever we called out.
He would do it, and then he would step away. Yeah. And we didn't have to ask for that. So he was just a human being. So I would say, when you want to shoot stuff, if you want to make stuff, and I would really implore you, get out there, start making stuff. But look at what you're watching at and think about it, because it's really hard. There's so much pressure. And actresses are all the time asked to get their gear off for no good reason. Not because the story's great, but because it'd be great anyway. Hey, who wouldn't have fun at that? And the thing is, it's a terribly intimate, vulnerable place to be. So as a director, your first job is to protect those people because they're being so generous, exposing themselves. And the second thing is to, really be a hard ass. If you have assholes like that, you've got to work out a way of dealing with it. And it's hard because people can interview very well. And then
nobody tells you they're a lecherous slob.
Yeah, no one says, I'm an absolute misogynist. I'd love to work on your lesbian film.
This movie, I lit that movie. I love strong women's films. But I do have a problem drooling over actresses. Nobody says that.
They don't. Do
they? No. So weird.
But I do find it a weird time we're living in, that someone has to be. We have to have a person supervising people to be normal, decent human beings. What the fuck?
It is a shame, but I think it's a good thing at this point until it becomes normal on every set for that to happen. Because I don't think the sets we run are normal from that perspective. No. I think we're exceptional.
Yeah, but I think it's because we are all in control. Our partners are producers, and it's like a very strong female bent to everything. Other questions? Yes.
Yes, you can have the selfie. I don't think we did it yesterday. Is there another one?
I think you still remember me.
Yeah.
About the film I Can't Sing Street, the second sexy scene, it's not follow the time step.
That's right. Yeah, it's out of sequence.
It's like montage.
Yes.
And actually, it's my first time to see sexy scene that editing by that way, and at that moment, wow, that's amazing, that's brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and really, I never seen like that editing in other films, so I want to know how you get the idea, and how you think about that to editing like that way.
Yeah, I think I was it was my first film. I'd never been on a film set, so overall I was pretty much dreading shooting the sex scenes. So I was really trying to come up with a concept for the second scene, particularly, that would give, and it's a romantic comedy. So I think within that, it's not about being, for me at this, it's about not being super raw or super naked or something that was super like intimate in that sense, but just this kind of joyous celebration. They can finally be together. So I just like that idea that they could hardly wait to get their hands on each other, basically, as they're coming in the hotel room door. So we thought, okay, this would be where they fall in the door and it's against the wall and what have you. And then I thought, okay, but that's a certain feel, but it would be nice to suggest that this goes on a while and there's this more intimate, slower feel by the bed, which we shot in a slightly in slower motion, slightly faster frame rate. Faster frame rate? Oh God, it's been that long since I shot something. Sorry. And just like 36 frames a second, so just a little bit of tenderness to the feel of the shot. So yeah, that was where that came from. And obviously, we shot it first by the door and then on the bed, and I think it flowed. We had a very close set for that by this time. We got everybody else except the DP, who's absolutely lovely, and only women were in the room apart from him. He's this big chunky guy with a beard, where it's very unfeminine in that way, but he's so sweet, and he was very, very caring about the actresses, and then everybody literally got wardrobe, makeup, everybody we could find on set who were women and in with the field. They were holding the lights, they were holding reflectors, whatever, and everybody felt a lot more relaxed because we've been through such a stressful journey on that film. So it was planned as a concept to go from the door to the bed from the beginning, which I think helped. Yeah.
Other questions? And then I'm gonna, yes.
I was wondering, does the idea of male fantasy, does that kind of inform the way that you do the sex scenes, because you don't want it to be because obviously you're queer, you don't want it to become a gross, because if you watch Blue is the warmest colour, it's so clear that
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
Awful.
Oh, absolutely. Who's being sued, by the way? Did you guys know that?
Oh, is he?
He's being sued. Yeah, they're looking at, Blue is the warmest color.
He's being sued for what?
Because what's the sexual harassment on set during that sex scene?
You know that sex scene was filmed over, I think it was 10 days. 10 days.
Yeah.
the actresses said that
Yeah, the actresses were very vocal about how horrible it was. Yeah.
if you see sex scenes that are directed by men, it's
Can I answer that, because I feel quite passionately about it?
straight women having really shit sex.
Look,
Does it come into does the idea of misogyny and male fantasy inform how you?
if I can start, I mean, for us, and it's interesting because when we showed our film and released it, I was surprised when we showed to all sorts of different audiences, and we have quite an explicit sex scene, and it was a very specific decision of mine to actually make it more explicit than just a kiss or a little bit of this and that, because again, I felt like it was very rare to see that, but I had to make it happen within a story that I thought supported that and everything like that. What you're talking about was very much in my mind, in that I did not want to make a film that anyone would write to me and say, that felt like a really hot scene and my name is John and I'd like to get together with you, which happens a lot, to different people. But what I'm saying is that I think there's something very special in intimacy between people, but I think specifically lesbians are very underserved in terms of proper sex scenes of all shapes and sizes. And my story needed a tenderness, and I wanted it to have. I wanted young women who saw that sex scene to know that there was more than a kiss and a curtain closing, or whatever. And so that meant having to make a safe space for the actors to feel able to show oral sex, to show all sorts of things. But I was, Blue is the warmest colour, I was so angry when I saw that film because I walked out of it. Because it was very clear to me what was happening in the exploitation. And I think we're fighting that sort of stuff all the time, whether it's obvious or subconscious bias. So yes, it's in my mind not to make anything that could be seen like that.
I'm an aspiring filmmaker myself, so I've done like a few like shitty short films while at uni and stuff. And I've never done a sex scene, but I did like a kiss scene between two women. And like the cameraman was like a laddie straight boy. And because I'm a bit butcher, he kind of approached me as if I was a lad. He's like, oh, it's fucking hot that in it. And I was just like, am I making this like worse than it should be? And I had to like question myself. I was like, is this more sexual than it needs to be, or is he?
I don't think
He's a
you
dick.
should. I don't think you should shy away from making
was
it
just gonna
sexual
say,
or making it sex. If I don't, it's irrelevant to me the male gaze on that front, because I'm not making it for that. I'm just making it for the audience. There are a lot of men who watch The World Unseen and came out to me and said, "Oh my God, that kiss was just amazing," and they're like,
It was.
But and if some people are going to see that in a more lechy, disgusting way, there's nothing you can do about that.
Exactly.
That's their problem.
Your gaze is going to be your gaze. You're going to direct that with your voice, with your look, with your eye. And if someone else says yes to it for a different reason than you've made it, who the fuck cares? Like, you can't control that. And if you come to it with this intention and with this thought process, that's all that matters. I think you can absolutely tell the difference between something that's shot with the male gaze and something that's shot with a female or lesbian director. I can put scenes up next to each other and you just know immediately. So you're the one who's making the decision. If he says yes to it for his own reason, great, that's fine. People come to art for all
and
different
as long
things.
as you could control that vision. In other words, that could have gone a different way if he was like, yoo-hoo, and then he shoots it a way that is out of your vision. But but what I was going to say is, we shot that film, and it's primarily for, it's my film, my gaze, but I was extremely happy that men would come up to us in tears after that film and say, well, a lot of men came up and said, now I understand what my wife is saying. But the other thing was, was that they were able to be moved in a way that they hadn't been, and thought that they wouldn't be able to engage with that story and that intimacy between two women on the level that wasn't a porn level. So I think, everyone's doing different things for different reasons, but it's all about communication, and it's you need to hold your vision and do it your way.
Mandahla, I feel like you were about to say something, and then
I was going to say, as an actor, when I actually am approached to be in something, if it is a straight male, I question why they have a sex scene in it. What are they going to do? I feel so much more comfortable with a female director than a male director, most definitely. And lately I've had the absolute pleasure of being on sets that are pretty much mostly women. And just the space feels so much safer. Whereas I have been on sets where, I have had to be fairly naked with maybe just a covering or whatever, and when men are there and they shouldn't be, of course my defenses are going to go up. But I trust my director. So if I have a problem, I'm always going to go to my director and be like, hey, so, this guy's here, or, why, or blah. But as an actor, I approach a sex scene with the fact that I trust my director completely. They have my back. They know what they're doing. And most of the time, those directors are women.
Yeah. So we are coming to the end. So what I would like is I'm going to make a statement around why it's important for these folks here to go out and make projects. And then I would love to get everyone on the panel slots as well. And then we're going to close out and have a great rest of our day. It is so unbelievably important to have more women, and especially more queer women, behind the camera. And the reason is, and I haven't had to do this for a while because I've been hiring more queer women in leading roles, but when I got my start and I was hiring more straight women who needed to kiss, and I didn't have a lot of takes because I didn't have a lot of money, so we had to get things quickly, and I needed to make sure that the important kiss or the important scene was done with an understanding of something that a straight woman isn't always able to understand because they have navigated the world through heteronormative lens. And I talked about some young girl in Knoxville, Tennessee, who feels so alone and does not know another gay person or another lesbian, and is not sure that she will be able to find love. And the most important thing that she will be doing is watching something on television where she sees two women kissing in a way that makes her realize she's not alone, she can find love, and there is a future for her in this world. And I have never, ever had to give another direction after giving a similar speech like that. And the more we can show women having intimate moments and women on screen saying yes to their sexuality and to loving another person, that is one of the most important things that we can do, because it makes us all realize we are not alone in the world and there is love. And if you don't feel that, it can be a very hopeless world. So go out, make your stories, tell your stories, write your stories, film your stories, send them to tellofilms.com because we'll put them on the air. But also support lesbian content, support content that's out there. We are very proud to have The World Unseen and I Can't Think Straight on Tello. We're talking about doing All About E and putting it on there. So we need more stories for our community. We need more things we can say yes to.
Agreed. How beautifully said. Now, I mean, look, we live in a world where still 94% of film directors are men. Okay, never mind 94%.
Okay.
Never mind queer women. Let's just talk about women for a start. So there is a hugely underserved need, and you know, when actors are saying they feel a palpable difference between having a female director and a male director, well, you know, your odds are not great to have a lot of female directors. It is changing. Slowly, but, and I will say this last year that we've spent in going back and forth to LA or wherever it might be to set up projects, is the first time that we haven't sat in a room and they go very openly, can you make one of them white? Could you make one of them a guy? Could you just de-gay her? People will say this to your face and you sit there and you have to take it. And then I walk out and they go, no, I'm not going to do that. She's like, no, of course you're not. I was like, what are we going to do? I have no idea. But, you know, not everybody has that support system and that ability, and it is changing, but people are still tentative because they don't know how that's going to translate to money, to distribution, to whatever. But where we have distributors like Tello, we have, you know, if you have the will and the way, just make those stories and put them out there, because the more people see them and realize that other people want to see them, the more it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you remember when it was exciting to have a gay character on a TV show?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing.
I know.
It's changing.
Now it's,
Yeah, look, same sort of stories. When we started off shopping this feature project, the most common thing, our main character is a young Arabic Australian woman, and I would be very rich if I had $1 for every person who said, oh, I love your story, I love your character, could she just maybe not be Arabic? Or could... I know she's a lesbian, but couldn't she sleep with a couple of guys on the way? And so, you know, just the message, I think, is stick to the story you want to tell. I mean, if your story is that she is going to sleep with someone on the way, fine, but ours wasn't. And I think the world is changing a little bit, and there is a bigger world out there now for diverse projects. And we just need to hold on to that vision. It's so hard to make films. You may as well make the one you want to make.
Yeah.
So, you know, and see yourself there.
I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. I would say that just follow your heart. If you have a story that you want out there are ways to get it done, and no straight white male can tell you otherwise how you should write a story. I have not had the pleasure of writing stories because I actually really love my job as an actor to actually bring your stories to life. So again, I've said it once before, chemistry is so important. As an actor, if I have so much chemistry with my co-star, then we're going to make your story fucking amazing.
ClexaCon, thank you so much for joining us for our panel. Thank you to my amazing panelists. We so appreciate you being here. We are over time, so head out the door.